All right, this is a take two of preliminary feasibility research. Last time the computer screen froze, so we're going to try this again. And I just wanted to give you all a quick tutorial on answering the question, might this property be buildable? I would say at least once a week, if not 2 or 3 times a week, this question comes up fairly often. And that question is, can I build a house on this property? And it's a great question. And as you would imagine, it's a very simple question that could have a very complex answer depending on a lot of variables on the property, including zoning and size of the lot, terrain, septic, well, wetlands, any other restrictions or variables that the county might be placing upon the property, easements, titles, a lot of questions that could not be answered through this preliminary research, but hopefully this quick video helps point you in the right direction. Now, I'm going to do a quick tour on a specific property in Pierce County. Keep in mind, if you're looking at a different county like King or Thurston, or maybe even a different state, these maps might look a little bit different. The resources might not be there, or might look different. The buttons might be in different places. So I just wanted to show you a quick video specifically looking at Pierce County and what that preliminary feasibility research looks like on my end. That oftentimes when that question comes in, is my immediate response. So for most people, this might take 4 or 5 minutes. Once you get the hang of it, it could take 1 to 2 minutes. And to add this asterisk, I am not a builder. I am not a feasibility expert. This is just coming from somebody who has done some flips, some remodels, a lot of other property research for myself and for clients to just kind of answer these preliminary questions that come up. Might this property be buildable? This isn't going to answer for sure if it is. This is going to tell you with a few minutes of immediate research, is this one even worth looking into the next step? So with that being said, I'm going to open up and add a quick Google Doc, because Google is where everything starts. So, or a Google site rather. So I'm going to jump into Google and we're just going to research Pierce County parcel search. Now you could enter in Pierce County parcel, map, Pierce County assessor site, a lot of variables that could make that pop up. I'm just going to write Pierce County parcel search, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the first thing that comes up. I'm going to toggle back and forth to make sure that the internet is not cutting out and that this is still working. The Pierce County parcel site, or the Pierce County assessor treasurer site, rather has a button right at the top that says property tax and value research. This is public information. It's not secret. There's not a code, not a passcode. This isn't just for experts. This is just for all public information for you to be able to research your property and others regarding feasibility and other facts. So I'm going to click on property tax and value research. And then for the sake of this one, I'm just going to put in an address that somebody recently sent me a message on. Let's see if I can have this one memorized. On the house number, of course, just put on the house number, and on the street name, just avoid adding any of the suffixes on it because it will confuse the system. So just add the first preliminary word. If it's, for example, Thompson Street, you're not going to write Thompson Street or Thompson Street Court East, whatever those suffixes are. You're just writing Thompson. So I'm going to put in this specific property at just a second. All right, so we're going to look at this one together. The first thing that pops up is a link for the property. Sometimes there's parent lots and children lots, and we'll get into more of that if you have questions later on. But for the most part, each parcel search and address will populate one property, and they're going to have a lot of information there, including a summary of the property, the taxes and values. You'll be able to see if there is a discount or a reservation on the taxes for some reason, the land, how much property. This one specifically is 26 acres. The buildings, what buildings are on the property, when were those buildings built, recent sales, a lot of information on here. A map, which is what we're going to dig into more in just a second. And then some sketches. Sketches aren't always available, but when they are, it's great to be able to click on those and see what that looks like. And then just a little bit more information about my property. There's a lot of other links, but we're going to jump into the map specifically. Now, looking at this one, what I can tell you right off the bat is that this is just a preliminary map, and you can see this blue line running right through the middle of it. That blue line is there because it's telling us that there's a creek there. So specifically on this one, we know that at least you cannot put a property right there in the middle of the creek, and you probably can't put a property or a house rather right, anywhere around in that buffer. And we're going to look at that, what specifically that looks like in just a minute. So there is a creek running through there on Pierce County parcel search site. You can zoom in, you can kind of float around there, see what's happening around it. But we're going to follow this link. That's the public GIS down just below that picture. So on this one, as soon as it finishes loading, I am going to put that back because it's opening a new window here, and I want to put it in this window to make sure you can see it. All right, perfect. So we're going to zoom out a little bit and show you a couple of the cool little tips and tricks that work for some preliminary research. So right off the bat, you can do a few things. In the bottom left, you can measure, you can select some variables, you can print out the map. In the top left, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. But specifically, I usually focus on a couple things right here. There are these little colored squares right at the top of the screen. And that's where the beginning research really happens. So I am going to start by clicking on an aerial map. I want to see what the aerial looks like. And then I'm going to deselect the road map because that can kind of just make the picture a little bit fuzzy. I'm going to start by just kind of looking at the surroundings of the property, what's happening, what creeks might be around, what the neighbors' properties look like, where is the house located, or if there is an existing structure, how close to it is it to other noteworthy things. And then I'm going to check on the terrain. So I'm going to deselect the aerial, then I'm going to add the terrain map, and I want to see what the elevation looks like. So on this one specifically, you can see these lines. They're usually separated by a 10-foot increment. So it says 1650, 1660, 1670, 1680. That's showing us that there are 10-foot increments. There's about a 40-foot elevation variation from the front of the lot to the back of the lot, or kind of from the bottom left to the top right of the lot here. And then I'm going to go back to the aerial map now that I have that information, and I'm going to deselect the terrain map. Next to those 4 colored squares, there's kind of this little hamburger or a stack of papers there. And next I'm going to click on that. And there's a ton of information here available. I'm always going to start by clicking on environmental. And again, if you're on Pierce County, King County, Thurston County, depending what county you're in, these maps, the references, the verbiage, even like environmental or wetlands, they might look and sound a little bit different. So you kind of have to dig into it to make sure it's making sense in relative terms. So I'm always going to start with environmental, and then I'm going to select wetlands. Now, what you'll notice right off the bat is a couple things. You can see where the creek is going right through the middle of the property on this one. And then you can see this large buffer of wetlands that potentially, now these maps could be a little bit off, but they're relatively close, that there's a huge buffer of wetlands around the property. And most counties, cities are going to have some sort of restriction that you can't build within 10, 20, 50 feet of that wetland buffer. So this one specifically, there is a lot of wetlands on the property. And you will notice that there's a couple of houses within the current wetlands that's kind of been delineated out on this map. And oftentimes the question is, well, if they're wetlands, why are there houses right there? Could be a couple reasons. Could be that they built without applying for permits, and it's more probable that they built when there weren't concerns about wetlands in the area, or they got a variance, or that within that area that they still are allowing some building, but that there might be heightened restrictions on what exactly you can do as far as building on that property. What we know for sure is if there's a creek in the middle of it, there's probably some huge cost to having to build right on top of that creek, and it's probably just not feasible. Now, in addition to wetlands, there's a lot of other areas. You can click on regulated floodplains, hydro water bodies, hydric soils, floodways. A lot of those maps are going to be very consistent with what the wetland maps looks like. So I'm going to deselect environmental, and then I'm going to check on parcel. You can also, through parcel, you can see if recent building permits have been obtained. So you can see on the neighbor's property, they obtained a permit. If somebody had obtained a permit or applied for a permit, that would pop up here. You can also see kind of the tax parcel boundaries, zoning, places of interest, political boundaries, if that's of interest to you, public safety, transportation, and utilities. So a lot of information. Most of the time, I'm just going to jump in here. I'm going to look up what the terrain looks like. I'm going to see if there's any obvious wetlands, and I'm going to try to figure out what area of the property might still be buildable without considerable obstacles. So on this one, maybe you can clear out some of the property and build there. And maybe on this little flat spot right here specifically that you might be able to put a house, still have some room for a buffer there if there wasn't already one here. Or sometimes you might be able to still kind of be grandfathered into the previous location of a building. So hopefully that's helpful for you wherever you're at in your research. If you're looking to buy and build, if you have more questions about the loan process, about the feasibility, about connections for other people who actually are feasibility experts, planning developers, builders, feel free to reach out anytime. I'd be more than happy to answer questions on those. And hopefully that helps you get started on the right foot on just figuring out how to navigate the Pierce County parcel search and some potential obstacles on doing some preliminary research on properties. If you have any other questions, again, feel free to shoot us a message wherever you might find this video. And we look forward to serving you. All right, talk to you soon.